They say the first man a girl ever loves is her daddy. That his words paint portraits that last lifetimes, and his hands mold vases of roses that live only for true love's first kiss. This little girl's beauty is safest in the arms of her beast because he will climb mountains for her, and she knows it. But what about the little girl whose only memory walked out the door and never returned? Where true love never even had a name because her kisses only lived in photographs of time she can't even remember, but she remembers. Sitting by telephones that never rang of birthday wishes and smudges on windows from tears of fears that never even had a chance. What about that little girl who grew up wondering why she wasn't ever good enough? Why daddy's promises held so much weight but fell harder when he dropped the ball, the fall always reminded her of his leaves he left, a little girl in desperate need of spring because how could she bloom if daddy wasn't there to be her sun, if daddy wasn't there to weed out her insecurities and plant seeds of confidence that only his words could do? What about her? You see, she'd grow up wondering what that love felt like, searching for love in all the wrong places, spaces that never quite added up, subtracting purity for fraction pleasures that never multiplied to anything because her body was the only thing of value. So she grew up feeling like she had to prove that her love was worth it. I grew up trying to prove that my love was worth it. I was worth them sticking around, but for some reason they always seemed to leave. Just like my daddy. And just like my daddy, I wrapped my heart into a box that was never addressed to anyone. I figured as long as I never mailed it away, then they could never return to sender. I figured if my trust was never labeled as fragile, then it couldn't be easily broken. But time after time, mailman after mailman, I think it got lost in the mail. I think I got lost. Until one day I was found. Broken and ashamed, surprised, he even knew my name. He called me daughter. He said I was his favorite, that he'd left his 99 just for me. He called me righteous and redeemed. I felt unworthy, like I'd done nothing to deserve it. I felt empty for wanting to be full of myself, full of my sins, because it was easier to blame him. He said I was blameless, no spot or wrinkle, because he called me daughter. He said my past was his masterpiece, every piece placed in his master plan. He said he doesn't make mistakes, that sometimes life requires pain to appreciate healing, heartbreak to understand true love, and absence to value his presence. But absence was like a familiar song I knew too well, the kind you try to get out of your head but never seems to really leave. He always seems to leave. And this time won't be any different. This time I'm sure I'll make him mad and he'll stop loving me. He said, my love endures forever. This time I know I'll turn back to my sin and he'll turn his back on me. He said, I'll never leave or forsake you. This time I know I'll run away and he won't come looking for me. He said, I am with you always. He said, you are my child. That he had adopted me while I was still in my mother's womb. that I was never an orphan, and every time I felt abandoned, he was there. Every time I felt unwanted, he was there. Every time I questioned my worth, he was there. And every time, he will always be there, because he calls me daughter and I believe him. So now I call him daddy.